Hey guys, thanks for tapping in on this video. I want to remind you that we are crowdfunded and dream-driven around here. If you would like to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/pigeons420. With your support, we can interview some of the biggest minds in our space right here. Thank you so much to our members. Thank you so much to our patrons for supporting the show. And thank you for watching today's conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of sitting down with Mr. Spliff of cannabis himself. Mr. Spliff, dude. Thanks for pulling up, man.
What's up, buddy?
Dude, living the dream, man. I appreciate you making time for me. How you been?
I've been good. I've been living the life of somebody lost amidst a growing industry and trying to find my place, keep my place, stay relevant. You know, the modern mix of this growing industry.
Attaboy. And you seem to be making it quite well so far, dude. I was actually just tuning into one of your live streams this morning, and you're having quite the conversation, man. You're live quite often, dude. Keeping the conversation flowing.
I'm live a lot just due to the fact that it's easy to talk to people in real time, you know, and so we do a lot of consultation and, you know, as far as just helping people with their grows. Basic info, people that are intermediates or advanced, there's a lot of little things that can get in the way, be it some environmental control or soil issues or feeding issues. And so we do a lot of lives because I like to talk to people, you know, and I've also lost so many channels, right? Like I've lost a few YouTube channels over the years, and I've done YouTube since like 2011, and we had big accounts back in the day. Same with Instagram, like really good size accounts, but I kept losing everything. Let's just say sometimes I don't know when to keep my mouth shut, but we lost, I'm not even allowed back on Instagram. I've lost like 300 accounts over the years, and we had started to do lives there, but the lives are nice, you know, and not your typical podcast. We just talk about life and growing. And so, you know, it's a daycare for adults to come and talk about life and cannabis.
I like the idea of daycare, dude, because it's harmony, brother. It's a common square. It's where you can just come, hang out, be free, let loose, relax. I can appreciate that.
And that's exactly what it's become, is a lot of people that there's a lot of regulars, and you know, I've had a good following throughout the years just because I was always super involved, you know, and I don't know if you want to call it give back or share or whatever, but so we have a family vibe, you know. It's just like come in and talk about things, and if you got something on your chest or you just need some sanctuary therapy, listen to people, you know, gab in the background, it's a good time.
I love that, dude. I love that. The reason that you and I are sitting down together today is, I'll admit, my comment section, dude. I put out a video of, I did a Subcool kind of tribute, if you will, maybe a documentary.
Nice.
I can't even call it that. It was a 10-minute video, and it was just kind of highlighting Subcool, his efforts, his work, and his personality. And there were so many. There must have been a half a dozen comments under there that said, "Yo, you got to check out Mr. Spliff, man. You got to check out Mr. Spliff. Hit up Mr. Spliff." And I was like, "Dude, that's an awesome idea, man." And so literally, this came from the community. This conversation right here. So conversations happen all the time, and our community is a huge portion of that. And, you know, this conversation might not even happen without it. So I appreciate you making time for me. If there's anyone that's listening that doesn't know who Mr. Spliff is, who are you, man? What do you do?
So I'm one of those guys that came up like anybody else, you know, finding cannabis in my early high school days. And, you know, I'd been through family situations that left me without a way to process and whatever else, you know. And so cannabis became something that softened my edges, if you will. And, my parents didn't know what to think about it. You know, my dad was definitely anti-drug, and he was one of those men that had fought a lot of things in his life, and not as far as like addictions, but just normal life things. And he didn't want to see me end up being somebody that threw their life away. And so he hated the idea of cannabis. My mom, you know, she watched this crazed, angry teenage kid, like, chill the fuck out. And she didn't like that I was using it. They especially didn't like that it became a commodity at one point, you know. And so I always grew up with this like feeling of this is something that really works for me. And I didn't know if it was something God would want for me, but as far as just like, you know, mind you, I'd been through a bunch of knee surgeries. I was being set up to play professional soccer when I was young, and I had opportunities to go to England, and I was going to play with Leeds United and play with the farm team and come up, and I'd hurt my knee a bunch of times. So I'd had knee surgeries from playing on the good old American AstroTurf, you know, and so I had been pumped full. Well, the doctors tried to pump me full of drugs. I actually just wasn't taking them and telling them I was. And because the few times that I'd taken some of these things, they had made me feel non-human. And so when I found cannabis in a way to manage pain and stress and things like that, I was like, well, this is interesting. And it continued to stay a part of my life. And you know, I'd made the trips to Europe, and I'd spent time in Amsterdam and seeing the European scene, and was, you know, impressed by the difference in cannabis culture there. It's much more laid back, I would say. Americans are charged up, you know, North Americans in general. We're like, let's go get them, boys. You know. So but I'd come back home after my last trip in 2010, and at that point my mom had moved in with me and was fighting her cancer. And she was not getting better, and she was getting really, really sick. And at one point she'd almost died. And it was a really, really tough situation. And so I started like not getting desperate, but I was at the point where I needed to see if something else was going to work. So at the time I had already started growing a little bit of herb, and I was processing and making bubble hash. And you know, God bless YouTube, even back in those days, you learn how to do stuff. And so I started spiking the coffee with hash and bubble hash, and my mom like made this insane recovery. And the oncologists were like, dude, what the hell? And they asked me one day at a meeting, like, your mom lives with you, right? I was like, yeah. And the oncologist is like, bro, you stink like weed, and not like burnt weed, but like fresh weed. Like, your mom's getting better. Are you doing anything at home? And I was like, I am. And I told him that I've been putting like a half gram of really nice bubble hash in the coffee, you know, like 3 times a week. And so all of a sudden, you know, this little Christian kid that told drugs are bad, okay? And that's all you hear growing up, and you have this certain stigma around it. And then I see it save my mom's life. And that doesn't mean to me like jump in with both feet and start taking bonk tokes 50 times a day, but there's clearly some, like, I think you and I can both agree that because of big pharma, big business, big whatever, we've been lied to our whole lives. And you see something like this that they're telling you, oh, bad, 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 and then it like literally saves my mom's life. So I was that kid that came up in the drug culture with this idea that drugs are bad, MK, and blah, 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 and pharmacy good, and eat these pills. And then I watched my mom like recover. So as somebody that was already very fond of cannabis, to see this in-person life-changing thing, you know. And again, there were probably other things that were helping, but they noticed a huge change when I started doing that. So that's when, like literally in that same time frame was when I met Subcool. And I'd met a dude named Jinx Proof who lives up here in Washington, and I do too. And we had connected, and you know, no matter where I'm at in life with whatever group of people, I'm a hard worker, I'm a smart dude, and I can make things happen. So I was welcomed to that group like open arms, and worked there with Sub for like 4 years. For my own reason, I had to leave. And you know, we were running big gardens at the time in Washington with medical, and because of my work I had all this space. And so about 9 months later, Gage Green and I started doing work together, and we did stuff for about 3 years together. And during that time, huge part of the high time scene, and going to all the cups and becoming this you know, social butterfly and this household name for a long time, and like signing autographs and blah 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 blah. It was a weird life. And I ended up leaving Gage Green a few years after we started working together and started doing my own thing. And, I never honestly intended to breed cannabis, but you end up with 200 clone only cuts and thousands of packs of seeds, and you start running through them. And so my life has just been one of those things. I'm a leaf in the wind, and God bless men for having that ability. With that note, it's just a side note, but I knew this native dude down in California. He lived in Ukiah, and wise old dude. His name was Andy. And he was the kind of guy that raised orphans. Really deep heart, long play type dude. Not trying to solve this problem right now, trying to help you solve problems in your life, at length. And he told me, he said, women have a biological clock that is an every 28-day clock. Everything is in compartments and has to be in compartments, and they have a monthly reminder of that. Where men don't have that scheduling, we're this weird leaf in the wind. So us being responsible is necessary, because otherwise we can just float away. You know what I mean? We don't have that internal mechanism that regulates us, that gives us that capability. And he also told me, doesn't matter how many times you've fucked up, you always have the chance to do the next right thing. And that has always stuck with me. And so that's who I am. I'm a guy that came up smoking, graphics, plastic bongs with the pole stem, bro. You got the one with the pole stem? Oh, shit. And the gas masks hooked up to the triple perk bong in high school, and taking L and eating Molly and being fucking crazy, and bunch of vacations all over the world and just being weird and wild. And then I settled down and met my wife about 16 years ago. I guess we met a little bit before that. She went to the military for a couple of years, but she and I have been together for a long time, and I've got redheaded magic in my life, which is awesome. So, but cannabis is a big part of my life, and I think it's one of those things that we need to give thanks for a lot of times, because people today probably don't understand how hard we had to work to not only even acquire it, but find good weed.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's a totally different world, and I think it's probably pretty similar for you guys up there as down here. As our cultures are enough the same, where it's getting the weed bag back in high school was about the same. So
there was like a little. Yeah. There was a little bit of joy, a little excitement, a little hop in your step when you got that bag back in the day. And it was almost like there was like these same set schedules too, how it, like, come September, August, September, there was no weed anywhere. It was like dry. And then it wasn't until I got a little bit older and I started to realize, wait a second, this kind of corresponds with the outdoor grow season here. And then, by October, November, I can't remember who I was saying. It's like Christmas weed, dude. I always remembered I needed Christmas weed. That was huge for me, because it was such a dry spell, and you knew Christmas was coming, and it was like, I just really want to make sure I got my shit for Christmas time, dude.
That inner kid that's you're hoping you get your Red Ryder BB gun, right? You want the snowfall on the ground, a nice bag, and back in those days, you were getting a quarter if you were lucky, because money wasn't what it was, until you started realizing you're a full-blown pothead. And then you're like, no, I need the QP. Now I need the pound. Do you got seeds?
Yeah. You're starting to think days, weeks, months ahead now, right? Yeah, that's the real pothead. Dude, I commend you, first of all, for taking the steps to take control of health in your home and the health of your mother. And a lot of people would frown upon taking the initiative to try to find peace and health by medicating your mom's coffee. A lot of people wouldn't like that, dude. It's like the Ari Shaffer of when he dosed Bert Kreischer's drink with like meth or something. It was like it was either meth or Molly or something like that. I think it was Molly, actually.
They're all amphetamines anyway. Yeah.
Right. But the reality is that you took control, almost knowing that what you were doing was going to have some kind of positive effect, because I don't think you would have done it if you didn't think otherwise.
Well, I mean, it's like one of those things where what's the worst that could happen? I was like, if she gets too high, that's a thing, right? Like the last thing I need is my mom like, "Oh my God, I'm too high." But cannabis is so soft, right? And I was watching somebody that was in a failing state, and I prayed about it a lot, and I tried to ask myself like what were my motivations behind it, and then when I started to do it, like the very first day that I put the bubble hash in the coffee, I was living in this apartment, and and I had a sweet spot at the time. In fact, my mom actually lived in the same apartment complex, and my brother and I were splitting her rent at the time. And when she moved in with me, not only did that save me money, but I could like keep a better watch on her. And we had just learned about like she'd kept it quiet for years that she was dealing with it and all that. And so I put the bubble hash in the coffee, and my mom wakes up and she's like, "Oh, you made coffee." And I was like, "Yeah, I just figured," because we had one coffee maker in the house, out in the kitchen. She still lives with me today, 16 years later, by the way.
Wow, dude.
So, and she completely beat her cancer, and partly because she's God's little super universal soldier. Like my mom's 83, and there's days she's tired, but dude, she's a little Energizer bunny. So I made the coffee. She's all like, "Wow, look at you taking the initiative to make coffee." And I was like, "Yep, look at me," you know. And she got her cup. She went and sat down in her robe. And then, like 30 minutes later, I heard the shower turn on, which it takes her forever at this point in her life. She was really sick, dude. I mean, I was managing somebody that had cancer, was dealing with MRSA, had another blood infection, a respiratory infection, and like if it wasn't for the shielding and be it God or whatever else, and then
The love
me
of her son.
being yeah, well, like I never got sick, which was crazy. The doctor's like, "So you like carried your mom from bed to the bathroom into the shower into the bath and stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I mean, it got I had to deal with bodily fluid and bullshit like that, and I never got sick."
Right, right.
And mind you, I'm a O negative blood, and I have like the ability to fight stuff really good. But so she drank the coffee. I hear the shower turn on, and I'm like, "The fuck?" And then I like 10 minutes later hear the shower turn off, and I hear the towel bar, and like I hear her like drying off and doing her thing, and then she comes out fully clothed, and I'm like, not that she would come out without clothes, but like she put all her stuff on like no problem. I'm like, wow. And she comes out to talk to me, and it's the chick, the older chick from Something About Mary, when they dose her with the Adderall or whatever, and she's cleaning and she's lifting up the couch and vacuuming and all that crazy shit.
This was her.
Dude, my mom's like, we have an island in the kitchen, which is like it's probably 50 feet around it, and she's just walking circles, dude. And I'm like, "What's going on?" She's like, "I don't know. I got ants in my pants. I feel great." And I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I'm like, "Oh, the coffee."
Yeah.
And so, like, she slept better than she'd ever slept in like years. And I was like,
Amazing.
wow. And so I didn't do it the next day. She still had good energy. And I did it like every 3 days. And it was after about 2 months that we went to the oncologist. And the only reason he talked to me is so, like, I went with my younger brother and my older brother to talk to the oncologist because he's like, "I really need to talk to you guys." I had this like Fox Racing dirt bike jacket on, and it has like this particular breathable mesh on the inside. Well, go figure, that particular mesh is like the world's greatest aroma saver. I had like a quarter ounce of weed in my, like the Napoleon breast pocket. And I take it out and put it in the van when we parked it at the hospital. And, because I don't want to take flour in with me. Well, apparently that jacket held on to that stink like super hard. And so the oncologist, like, he's like, "I don't know if you saw like me making faces while because we sat down for like 30 minutes." And he was making these faces. He's like, "Bro, you stink." And that's where he's like, "She lives with you. What's going on?" I explained what's happening. And he's like, "We're not allowed to research cannabis, but it's very rare that I get like a firsthand story about something like this. And at the time, I was using um, the old Dr. Hornsby Advanced Nutrients organic recipes. So they had like the fish, they had the mother of super tea, the Nirvana. They had different bacterial inoculums and stuff like that. So we were growing pretty damn clean wheat at the time, and that led to my mom's body responding to it. And with all the stuff that guys like us would believe, it was nice to see an actual result of something that would be in line with the fuck, the pharmakia, fuck the pharmaceutical Rockefeller medical system that has been put in place to destroy our bodies. And so it was a little victory. And so my mom ends up living with me. And at the time, I was living in this so in the super, super upscale, one of the nicest neighborhoods in all of Washington. They had this giant apartment complex built for people that were awaiting their 10 and 15,000 square foot homes so they could live in the community while their home was being built. Well, then when all those people moved in, there's these like super luxury apartments, right? And I ended up living up there, and my mom lives with me, and we're on the third floor, beautiful view of the lake. And I mean, dude, it was epic, right? But there's a whole bunch of people that didn't like the smell of my weed, and I was growing hot, nasty fire. And this is all just such a good story. I got to tell it. So one day, the maintenance dude decides to break into my apartment. And when I say break in, he used one of the office keys because he suspected that I smoked marijuana. So this dude goes into my apartment and takes the half ounce off of my coffee table, takes it down to the rental office, and gives it to the manager. And I'm like, oh, wow, they send me an eviction notice. So what do I do but call my super high priced lawyer that loves fucking people up? And he's like, no, they didn't. I was like, bro, yes, they did. He's like, oh, give me 20 minutes. I'll call you back. He calls me back. He's like, oh, you're going to have fun with this one, my friend. I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, I've never heard about somebody being so stupid. And we literally had them by the balls, right? I had my medical permit at the time. I wasn't growing at the time. This is like just before I started growing too. So these people, and I'd already given them shit. Being a contractor and a guy that I spent my life in construction, and so when they fucked up all the drywall and they fucked up the chimney stack that was leaking, I made them do it right, and they hated me for it. And I even called them out in front of their superiors. So they did not like me. So this guy comes, takes my weed. They end up they're like, we're going to call the police. And my lawyer's like, oh, these guys are going to have to call a lawyer themselves. So he basically says, oh, you guys are harassing a person with disability and stuff like that. He's completely legal under the state, under everything. And you think that you have the right to unlawfully enter his residence with no notice and take what you consider to be contraband. So,
But is in
I
fact
ended up,
medication.
yeah, and regardless, say it was whatever, something that was illegal at the time. They
Doesn't
still
matter.
entered my home without
Not
entry,
admissible
so
in
we
court.
had, yeah, and they would have been in major trouble had I decided to pursue the matter. But that led to me realizing that I had them by the balls. So when my mom moved in, I was already growing herb because I was like, fuck these people. And my neighbors, I'm sure, didn't appreciate it. And I apologize to them because I was growing super silver haze and blue cheese at the time. And that shit was I wasn't using a filter. I was on the third story at the very top of this apartment complex on a hill. And they literally tried to kick us out. When I'd taken on my mom, she had gotten so sick that I had to quit my job. And, I wasn't a millionaire, but I was making $45 an hour framing houses. And I did weekends. I got bonuses. It was a good living. I had to quit to come home to take care of my mom. So I had to start really pushing the herb thing. And so money got tight for about a year and a half. And I had an eviction notice on my door every motherfucking month for a year and a half while I started taking care of my mom. Cannabis saved my ass, dude. Literally, I blew through my savings trying to just make everything work and pay for all the medication and anything else. I mean, the state took care of part of it, don't get me wrong, but and this is all going somewhere, I promise.
Of course, take your time.
So, uh, and I think, like, they knew that I was taking care of my mom, so there was a little bit of pity. And I had them by the balls still. So when I finally told them, hey, I might be moving out, they did everything they could to get their lawyers to make that an official 2-week notice. So they're like, yeah, we're already renting your apartment out. As soon as you're gone. They hated my ass, dude. I mean, it stunk. Like, my friends would come over and they're like, dude, as soon as I turn onto the road that then turns into your apartments, I can smell the weed. It was super silver haze. It was blue cheese. It was stinking. So we moved to this new spot, and my mom had become very accustomed to the cannabis being in the house. So at this new spot, she was upstairs in this house, and I took the whole lower floor, and that's where the garden was and all this. And I would sit with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and my mom came and sat next to me one night, and I had rolled this 5-gram super spliff. And she's sitting right next to me, and she's like watching what I'm doing, and I can't make sense of it. And finally, she puts her hand on my knee, and she's like, "Are you gonna light that thing or not?" My mom doesn't smoke, but she wanted to bathe in the second hand because she, in her head, is like, "That's what saved me." So for, like, all the stuff in my life that's ever happened, the fact that my mom, who doesn't smoke, looked at me one night and was like, "Bitch, are you gonna light that thing?" And mind you, my mother would never cuss. But she legitimately looked at me, like, with disgust, and was like, "Are you gonna light that thing or what?" Because she had been sitting there for 20 minutes, and I was like, generally I know when she wants to hang out, but she was just kind of passive and just chilling. And it was the funniest thing to see somebody that was like, "Dude, I need that weed smoke. I need to breathe that secondhand. Can you hurry up?" So, mom still lives with me, still a gardener, a dad, a husband, friend at best. And I'm somebody that's collected a ton of genetics because of my time with Subcool. He introduced me to everybody. I've always done very well in managing relationships, then worked with Gage. I've always had the right recognition. And so I was able to get damn near any cut I've ever wanted. And, I'm missing a few that I still want my green crack back in my particular cut of Afgoo and blah, blah, blah. There's a bubblegum, Bubblicious, but I'm blessed, dude. I got a lot, and now I just need to make the best use of it and get my name rebuilt because I've been canceled so many times that I'm that dude in the corner that's just like, "But what about me?" So just got to put in the work, though, right? That's what it comes down to.
You're absolutely right, dude. You're absolutely right. And your hustle's undeniable, dude. You are a definition of the soldier of the plant, man. Because like, dude, your story is epic, brother. And that's like one of the greatest introductions that anyone's given themselves that I've ever had on the show before. So very well done. That in my opinion is the definition of the power of the plant, the power of the love of a son. Really, when you put the two together, magic happens. And I think your mom is an example of that. And you took a lot of risks, man, a lot of gambles to put your mother's health at the forefront of your mission, man. And that takes a lot, dude. When you say you didn't get sick, dude, it's because you're built on fortitude. You're built on love. Your mom, I can already tell your mom's an incredible person, because if she wasn't an incredible person, you wouldn't be an incredible person. And I think that you are an example of a young man raised by a strong woman. Did I have that correct?
Oh, dude. Yeah, my mom's like kind of lady, lost both of her parents by the time she was 17, and went through a lot of bullshit in her life. And if it wasn't for my mom, I would be a full-time felon, locked up, wild man. Like, without a doubt, dude. My mom was that person that just, and my mom raised me with the Bible. It wasn't something that she, like, beat me over the head with it, but she always knew, or God gave her the right words at the right time, and those words stuck with me. And not that that's, I guess it's like just the right piece of advice at the right time. I'm definitely a very spiritual man, but it's funny how this little old lady, frail and but mean and dude, she's a pit bull. She's just a weathered pit bull. So it's like she's got that attitude and she's got that strength. And my dad, totally different individual. He's passed and I could care less, but or couldn't care less. But um my mom's a badass, dude, and my mom made me realize that nothing is you should expect nothing and be grateful for everything.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's wise.
So
That's wise words, man. That's wise words.
it's easy to get caught up in expectation in this world, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's why I believe as a men, we need a strong foundation. We surround
Without
yourself with
a
people
doubt.
because without it, we're hollow inside and we're lost and it's dark. And it's like with a strong foundation of surrounding yourself with people you love, people that you can trust. That's number one. And then putting yourself into a good community, man. Good communities, and I'm family, community, and country. That's my foundation.
Yes,
And so
100%.
and I wanted to talk to you kind of because you've already mentioned because you're a God fearing man, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to say I'm not. I think that's a pretty harsh stance to take, but I'm very open minded when it comes to religion, the gospel, and so one thing I've kind of noticed is that there's a lot of anti cannabis sentiment amongst people who have a strong faith, and I'm kind of curious how do you deal with cannabis and faith and or spirituality? Do they
So
conflict?
not at all. Like
Okay.
the Bible says, "My people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge." Okay, the same people that say "boo cannabis" are like "yay COVID vaccine" or "yay anything pharmaceutical," not knowing that that whole phrase goes back to an ancient word called pharmakia. Right. So the same people that might not be pro cannabis are totally pro Western medicine. And the only reason I say all this is just because it's not naive. They've been deceived, right? Like there's this huge curtain. The media is involved. It's a very big net. And God forbid that anything that's good for you would ever be accepted by the masses because wait a minute here type situation. So, I deal with a lot of there. I don't have the conversation with my Christian friends often, but they judgment is a very fine line. And the thing that I came to realize recently is that it's not just judge lest you be judged, but how dare, and again, this is in the frame that God is real and everything else, right? So how dare any of us judge another man and woman along their process and what might be revealed through that process, because that's what fortifies your faith or your understanding is that lived experience, that environment that is being cultivated for you, whether you know it or not. So there's going to be a lot of people that come and say this and that, and how I react in that moment may become a paramount set of words as they analyze things later. So uh, I'm not some doped up dude living under an underpass, and I have a way with words and a particular intelligence that would suggest that cannabis isn't what the mass media suggests it is. With that too, there's things like Psalm 104. I believe it's 104:14. It says, "I give the cattle of the field the grass, and man herbs for the service of his labor." There's things like Genesis 1:19 or 1:21 that says, "Any plant that bears seed after itself can be considered good and meat for man." So there's things that like would suggest that cannabis isn't this devil plant that they've made it out to be. And if you look at the history of the last 100 years and attempts to demonize like reefer madness and whatever publications they put out, right? They really wanted you to think that smoking weed would be similar to smoking crack. So, and Do I
I
want
assure
my
you, they're
daughter?
vastly different, my friend.
100%. I would know firsthand. I didn't do a lot of the other stuff, but like I said, I partied my ass off in my 20s.
We have that in common, my friend. Yep.
Yeah, you know, and you know, there's a lot of things that I've been through, and uh, the things that I question whether or not are good for me are the things that keep me from being at my very best. Um, but there's also those times where prayer is something that can be immediate, but often is a petition for future change. And so, just say I was married to a redhead,
Okay. Yeah.
and sometimes I want to be the best I can be, so I can steal away and just ingest a little bit. And may I just shout out? We were talking about the things that make men great. If it wasn't for the who wife supremacist, I don't know what we would do sometimes. So for our wifeys listening, uh, the ones that we were lucky enough to find that God pointed us to are the only ones that could withstand us and our lifestyle and our madness, and they're the only ones that see the little boy inside. So thank you for the wifey letting us occasionally, play video games and be weed heads and slap your butts and be the
Amen,
little,
brother.
because it's one of those things. And there's another thing, right? This the same age, or the native dude I was talking about earlier, Andy.
Yep.
He also told me, if you want to be married for a long time and you really love your wife, you've always got to play the game. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, when you were first getting together and you had to have a little strategy and you had to keep things fresh and had to keep her guessing. Well, don't forget that. And I think a lot of people in relationships, it's not that we settle, it's just that we forget how in love we are. And it doesn't matter how crazy I am or how crazy my wife is to one another. Man, when I see her, I don't ever let her see this video, and don't let her know I said this.
Nope. You
And
never
I
said
go,
this.
every time I see her, I get so excited. I hate it. I hate it. I get so excited when I see her, and I just want to squish her up in a little ball and put her in my pocket. Take her everywhere I go. But
I get that feeling, dude. I 100% understand that feeling. My wife is my boo, and I couldn't imagine with anybody else. It doesn't even matter. I was in a car accident in 2013, vicious car accident, wiped me off the map. And it's actually how I got to where I am here today. But long story short, I was sedated because I was trying to fight the paramedics, and I have no recollection. I have no recollection of this whatsoever. It's only been played back to me many, many times, and I can't believe that. It kills me that I was fighting with nurses and paramedics, but it wasn't me, dude. I had just been involved in a traumatic incident. In fact, brain
reptile
damage.
brain.
Yep, and so. They had me strapped to a gurney, buck ass naked. And so, again, I only heard this because then my father-in-law had to come in and see me like this in my vulnerable state. But anyways.
That's always fun.
Always fun. And so I'm strapped to the gurney, and I had been fighting. I was upset. I was just disgruntled. And when my wife came in to the room, and when I heard her voice, I immediately calmed down. I immediately settled. Again, I wasn't in any frame of mind, any right frame of mind. So when she came in and started talking, I immediately calmed down and I relaxed. And the nurse was like, I don't know who you are, to my wife, but you're not going anywhere. And so that's the power. That's the power of love, dude. That's the power of a strong woman. That's the power of, I believe wholeheartedly that a man cannot be at his full potential without the power of a strong woman, because my mind would not be where it is if I didn't have to worry about reproduction, dating. I'm trying to take this to a very primitive level where it's like, these are things that as a man you are thinking about, right? And it's something I don't have to think about. And so I think instead I can focus on my goals and my dreams and accomplishing things and providing and all these other things that I think help help secure that good foundation that we were talking about earlier. So I totally
Yep.
feel you in regards to having a good, strong connection with your wife.
Do you know why you calmed down when she came in and you heard her voice? Because the whole time you were injured, your reptile brain just wanted to tell her that you're okay
Mm-hmm. You're
and
probably
you were going to
100%
survive.
right. Yep.
And when you heard her voice, you understood that the one person that you wanted to tell more than anybody that you were going to be okay and back on your feet all of a sudden was in the room. And it's like, there's nothing like the voice of your wife. Even when my wife is yelling at me, I'm like, that's my bitch. So,
Yeah, dude. Good communication's important, dude. Good communication's important. That's number one.
Yeah.
You know, you listen to you watch couples from like elderly couples, and they say number one thing is good, strong communication, because you can't read each other's minds. And
Yeah,
if you,
I differ on that. I say humility is the biggest thing because we're all different. And even when you're with someone forever, it's still really hard to communicate. And so I always say humility is number one because often have you seen the movie Death to Smoochie?
no, I do.
Oh, you
One
need
thing
to
in this
see it.
conversation you're going to understand is I don't do movies. I really don't do
Oh,
any
dude, there's
cinema of
just
any.
so many great things. I had a lot of knee surgeries, so I was stuck in chairs, and so I have watched so many movies. But anyway, there's this phrase that they use: hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt. And it's one of those things that when you're in any of those phases of the day, it's very easy to lose sight of things. And if you're fighting, like, am I fighting for me or am I fighting for us? Right. And so then I always remember that, especially with a carbon copy of my wife, I've got a 7-year-old redhead that, like, God is punishing my wife for every mean thing she said to me by giving her a carbon copy of herself, let me tell you.
Yeah,
And like, it's so funny because I give her this particular look when she knows that's what I want to say, and she's like, dude, fuck you. But I think communication's definitely there, and the humility part of realizing why you fell in love with that person and why, like, when you say I want to make a life together, we had no fucking idea. The workload, the
no
emotional
clue,
load, the
no clue.
spiritual load, trying to manage the kid, trying to have any time of intimacy. There's a lot of things that just were not on the motherfucking schedule. You didn't realize what it meant to adult, right? We're out here adulting and we're like, shit, is this what our parents did?
We had no idea,
You
brother.
know?
We had
No idea.
no idea. And we weren't even like, I was a child. Granted I was 20 whatever, 2
No, it's
20.
about right though.
Yeah, but of course I was. I was a child. I was strung out on literally every drug under the sea, and it's like,
Good for you.
yeah, I did it young. I did it young.
I have that experience.
I think that's very important. Are you making coffees, Mrs. P? Would you mind? She's like, I was like, yeah. But anyways, that was the time where it was like, you know what? Let's make a relationship. Let's make I wouldn't say a family at that time. However, it was like, I was not the man
It's a
I am
safe
today.
house. Well, again, it's a process, right? Like, that's the one thing I've realized over the years is that you can be in a hurry to become somebody, but who are you supposed to be, and what is in the grand spectrum of people living and dying over 120 years, like, what is your purpose? What is your calling? How are you gonna not how are you gonna be remembered, but how many souls can you have a good effect on? And it takes time to get to that point where you're effective for a spiritual nature. And sometimes the only way that you can truly testify to the heat is have walked through the fire. So I never look back on the shitty stuff that I've been through and the addictive nature or whatever else. At least I can testify and I can tell somebody I know what it's like. I know what it smells like.
Yeah,
I know what it
yeah.
feels like.
I
So
struggle. Like, I'm really good at suppression. Like, I'm really good at suppression. And I think that's the result of a traumatic childhood. No father,
yep.
little parental guidance whatsoever. And so just literally raised by the streets, man. And, it's like, it's really easy for me to just forget all that. Just be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I have no idea. It's like I have a saying that music raised me, cannabis saved me. And I strongly feel like, I lived through country music and hip hop, dude. And, Blink 182, it
Hmm.
reminded me that I'm not alone out there. And it was like, it was good, good. It was a good life that I've inserted for the one that I actually had. Because if I try to remember my childhood, I'm like, I don't remember, dude. I'm like, drugs also do that. I'll admit,
Yep.
drugs have done that too, where it's like I'm a little bit perma-fried up there. But yeah, I suppress a lot of those memories.
Maybe God's giving you the ability to forget the things you don't need to hold on to.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's it. You got to move forward, brother. One thing is like, and I just say that in agreement with you, is like, you people who can't find success are often held back by their own grief, their own disappointment, their own depression and feelings and emotion, right? And it's like everybody has a woe is me story. That's what I always say. It's a story where it's like, my dad was never there. I was abused as a child. I struggled through drug addiction. I was in jail. I was not just me. I'm just saying what as these
No,
excuses,
no, I know what you mean.
And it's like, so so does everyone else. And insert your struggles here. We've all struggled. But no struggle, in my opinion, should be any more or less than any other struggle of anyone else. And yet, many others find a way to push through that, to still find the best version of themselves
Hmm.
and capitalize on that. So it's like, I don't like giving the woe is me story.
Well, it's funny that, like, in spiritual books, the devil is always referred to as the great accuser, right? So his job is to make you feel like a failure, make you feel short of glory, and all those things. And we do that to ourselves regularly. But when you look at the very best music, it only comes from people that have gotten their stripes. And so, uh, common people are the most glorious people because they have to go through this struggle that is life. And that's why the best music is written about overcoming that. And maybe not even on a grand level, but making peace with it and realizing that not everything is supposed to be a music video.
Mhm.
Because we are raised on that culture, and there's so much synthetic, um I guess, the way they project what we should want from our lives, right? Outside of like what us kids up here or down here grew up with, the American dream and 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and blah 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 blah, which is great, family and all, but I think people could be stoked. I shouldn't say stoked. We should hold our failures and the shit we've been through, and the stuff that we wish we could take back, or the stuff that we didn't like in our life, and wear them as a badge of honor, because again, it means that we have been through the fire and that we're fortified. And sometimes that's what it takes to be able to go on, is a little bit of experience of knowing, oh damn, that's a big hill. And then once you climbed it and gotten to the top of it, you might see a bigger hill, but you're like, damn, well, if that hill wasn't that much work, I'm sure I can do this next one. So it's community is huge, and we have a good group of dudes. That there's a few ladies that can stomach my lives, and it's not that it's crazy, but it's a locker room. Sometimes there's wiener jokes, and you can't help it. But having somebody to talk to is really important, and especially, in marriages, having that outlet outside of your spouse, not because she's not the one you can turn to, but sometimes you just have to work through the things that you want to say to her by talking to others or whatever. So we do our lives, and we talk about life and nonsense and important stuff, and definitely weed. Like, people come to my lives, if you ask any question about weed, we'll get into it like right away. Experienced grower, novice grower, but life is one of those things that can come with a serious beating, but mankind is very resilient. And I encourage everybody who feels like they're grasping at straws to keep grasping, because you never know when that one is going to be anchored and bring you all the way home. So don't give up. I deal with a lot of uncertainty in my life at this point. I work for myself and I'm constantly trying to get things back to a point where, I can sleep again knowing the bills are paid and everything's good like it used to be. And it's amazing what we can do when we actually want something. Like say when you were in your 20s and it was August and you wanted that quarter ounce and you were going to find it.
You're damn right.
So,
And we did, brother. We might have had to
oh
sit in a Walmart
man,
parking lot for 3.5 hours, but we
100%.
found it.
Dude,
Uh,
you were there for 3 hours and your buddy's like, "Hey, dude, sorry, been banging my girl all day. I'll meet you tomorrow."
yeah,
You're like, what do
yeah,
you
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
You're at home getting tail and smoking herb, and I'm in this parking lot. And he's
yeah.
like, "Yeah, bro, I'll see you tomorrow."
Yeah, dude, I'm probably just gonna hit up some Halo and go to bed, bro. Be like, fuck you, dude. Bro, one thing I wanted to dive into is like you spent some time working with Subcool, dude, and as someone who only got to look up to Subcool as someone online, Subcool came into this game long before I did, and so when I started creating
Yep.
content, he was definitely one of the most recognizable faces in the space. And man,
Yeah.
how was that? What was that experience like, dude? And rest in peace.
Yeah, so Montgomery Ball, Subcool.
Hmm.
Um, I met Sub 9 months after I started growing weed. When I was 29, 30. I'd always been a part of the industry as far as like, I guess not the industry. I was always that dude that had a couple of big vac sealed bags in the fridge. So my friends needed something, I had it. I knew people, gardeners and distributors, whatever. When my mom got sick and had to move in with me, I had just started growing, and I had to tear everything down in my extra bedroom and move it into my walk-in closet and give my mom that bedroom, you bitch. But and I had to like get really good in a small space. And I've been a carpenter for a good part of my life, a dude that is a problem solver and a systems guy. So I figured out how to grow really good herb pretty early on. Like I should say right away, really. I had one friend that grew a bunch and he gave me a few tips. But so when I met Sub, I met him through Jinx Proof. I'd gone to Amsterdam, I'd gone to Europe 2006, 2008, and 2010 for 2-month trips and just backpacked, took my guitar, and um, was friendly with people. Let's just put it that way. So when I came back in 2010, that was basically like my last trip. I knew that my life of a single man was not over, but it was time to be of service, right? So I came home and got to work and started growing herb. And the reason I mentioned the trip is I used to bring seeds home from Amsterdam because I was a part of the medical scene, and I would tell people that had like compassion clubs or dispensaries or whatever the fuck you want to call them. Hey, I'm going to Amsterdam. They'd be like, dude, can you get some seeds? Of course. So I'd send seeds home or bring them home, and I used to smuggle them home actually in different ways. No boofing. It's important that that's stated. I used to wear a marble in my upper lip, dude, for a month, the whole time I was on vacation, because I met a German dude in 2006 that told me that's how he would smuggle seeds all over the place. Wore a marble, had an indent in my lip. I had 50 seeds in my lip when I came home. Long story, I'll tell you another time. But so goddamn, oh yeah, so I'm like, I come home and the Seattle medical scene's starting to get bigger. It'd been around since like 99, but this is like 2010. And at the time, Craigslist was where all the dispensaries or patient to patient people would communicate because there was nowhere else to do it. So I see this guy who is selling TGA seeds on Craigslist, and I get a hold of him. I'm like, hey dude, you've got like real Subcool seeds? He's like, yeah, I'm Subcool's distributor up here in Washington. I just started working with him like a year and a half ago, and I've got tons of seed packs. And I was like, I got like tons of cash. And he's like, cool. I was like, well, can I come and meet you? I'm like just about half hour south of you. He's like, yeah, for sure. So we meet up at this like Kroger, Fred Meyer type, grocery store parking lot, and um, I bought like $700 worth of seeds that day, and I brought him an ounce of blue cheese. And he's like, "Dude, your weed is fire." And he's like, what do you want for the ounce?" I was like, "Answer my phone calls or my texts." He's like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah, if I want more seeds, just know that I come with weed that's fire, and I'm grateful, and I don't want to be that guy. I just want to be someone that when you see my number pop up, you're like, oh, sweet, it's that guy." So I started growing a bunch of stuff out. And then, Sub and I had talked on the phone a couple of times when I was at Jinx's house. And then we did the School of Dank where Subcool and I met face to face for the first time. And we like hit it the fuck off, dude. Like I got long ass hair. Sub had long ass hair. And I'm into metal. And we both had our way with, let's just say we're ladies' men. And so we had all these commonalities, right? Like, and that's that certain confidence, if you will, right? And so we hit it off, and I grew fire, dude. And the first time I met Subcool, so I'd gotten seeds from Jinx, grew out the cheesequake and a couple other things. I had fresh harvests that were like a month dried and cured, like stinking sticky. And I'm upstairs at this little event that we're doing, and it's just me and my buddy from Germany who's come to hang out with me. And it's like this little tiny event center that's got a stage and then like an area for tables, and then it's got this upstairs deck with like a fireplace in the wall and these nice couches and this beautiful view of the city from the south end. I mean, it's like this beautiful place, and I'm sitting up there rolling these joints with my buddy, and here comes Sub and Jill. Like, I asked if I could help set up, and Jinxproof's like, "No, dude, you've done more than enough. Go upstairs, smoke out." So Subcool comes upstairs and he's like, "Hey, dude, do you think I could sit next to you?" And I'm like, kind of like new at this whole weed game thing as far as the growers and all that. I've been slanging pounds for my life, right? But Subcool comes and asks I'm Mike at the time, right? He's like, "Can I sit next to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'll be all right." And as soon as he sits down, I hand him a jar of cheesequake, and he like opens it and smells it and is like, "Oh my God, what the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "That's cheesequake, dude." And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's like, it's the very first strain I've ever grown of yours. And I love cheese, and it's fucking amazing. And he's like, "Damn, I just get to Seattle. I can't even sit down before I've got super high grade fire, and it's my gear." And I was like, "Yep." And so we're sitting there chopping it up, and the local newspaper, the weed, what is it, Northwest Leaf or whatever, they come up, Subcool and are chopping it up, having this intimate conversation. They snap a bunch of pics of us, bam, goes in the paper. And so, like, immediately, because of where I was positioned, what I had on me, the whole meeting, we like hit it off, and immediately Sub wants me to be a big part of TGA. And so I started doing a lot more pheno hunting and strain collection, and my buddy Farmer John 420 was busy on YouTube. I did not know how to use computers. I wasn't a tech guy. I didn't know much about social media. Hold on one sec. Got to blow my nose. So
No,
anyway,
you're good. Bless you.
so I learned how to do, and by the way, in 2009, 2008, when I started learning about growing weed before I'd ever started, I had one of those click screen BlackBerry Storms.
Yeah.
We're talking like really
Yeah.
small screen, dude. That's where I spent hours learning about soil recipes and what they do and looking at agriculture. I mean, dude, BlackBerry Storm, give me a fucking break. So, my buddy John, Farmer John 420, he's like, "Hey, dude, you got to get on YouTube and like show some of your stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, I could do that." And, dude, those days of trying to upload a 15-minute video that would take 4 hours from your computer or your phone to load up, like insane. And then sometimes you'd fuck up and mention somebody's name rather than their weed name, and got to delete the video and start it over. So it's like I started coming up big with the YouTube stuff and Instagram, and I was kind of like the poster child for TGA for a while because I was growing 30 or 40 different, TGA varieties at the time. And I can remember, just having like a really unique, quick online presence. And I'm trying to think of when that was. That was like 2011 that we started doing that. So we started doing all these videos on YouTube, and I would go to all the events, and Subcool and I became like really close because he saw that I didn't like a lot of people that were close to big names, like be it DNA or Cali Connection at the time or any of like the people coming up. The hangarounds always wanted something, right? They wanted either to be put on or made famous or showered with this or that. I was stoked to be able to row the boat with him. So I showed up to events on time, shit together, weed to present to the people, hash to present to the people. Sometimes I'd bring clones and give them away as a raffle. He's like, dude, you're like, I don't have to ask you to do your part. You're already doing it. And so, like, because of that commonality, we got along really well. And, when I worked with Sub, he's the guy that would do a 14-hour day at a cup nonstop, dude. This guy'd be in his 50s and talking to hundreds and hundreds of people on his feet all day. Then the event would end. He'd sit down for like 5 minutes and you'd see the energy zap, and I'd be like, damn, dude, this dude. And as a framer and somebody that, was being groomed to play professional soccer, I knew what work ethic was. I knew what getting shit done was. And this was a guy I could look up to in that manner, right? And he was a good gardener. And a good businessman, and so we had a really amazing time together. But through the years, I just continued to build our relationship and not be the guy. I never asked him for anything, and he'd come to local events or I'd go somewhere. Not only would I bring he and Jilly weed, Miss Jill, his wifey, but I would also bring her organic food. No matter what, the wife and I would spend the day before the cup trying to go find a few things that we could keep in a fridge. So when Jill showed up to the event, and all there is event food, and she was health conscious, and so we did the little things to show them, and not for the wrong purposes, but more to take care of family. So we had a really close bond over the years, and I grew really fire weed, which helped the brand. I did videos, I was personable. And so, my time at TJ was really amazing. And to be able to come, like, you look at anybody that's trying to get into the industry and start content and this and that, like, it ain't easy, and you got to prove yourself. And here I got this first class fucking ticket, dude. Like, literally, I was and when I say I was a nobody, in the grand scheme of things, I didn't come up around gardeners. I came from a family that did not smoke cannabis, drink, or fucking do anything. I was not the black sheep, but I was that child that they were like, he's going to do whatever he's going to do. And so, I was all of a sudden in this industry and with this unique mentor. Now, Subcool was the kind of guy that had built this name and this brand and this and that, but just because you're this big name, everybody wants something. Everybody wants to be put on, and the friendships aren't genuine. And I could see that in Sub. I could see it in his soul. I could see it in his heart. I could see that he just didn't have and I'm not saying that people didn't care about him, but I think their intention wasn't always pure. So I became one of those guys. I set myself aside to be somebody that was a little bright light in a dark place. And I spent hours on the phone talking to Sub about, and a lot of people did, but Sub and I had, life talks and things, and our relationship got really furthered one night. We were at the 2013 LA Cup, and there was distress in the team and distress between him and Jill at the time. And things were just melting down. And we were leaving the event one night, and my wife, we're like getting ready to leave. And, my wife can hold her own, but we're in California, and we're at a big High Times event. And she's like, I'll be right back. And not that, and I trust my wife. It's not a matter of that, but I'm like, my little wifey's going to run into this event without me. And where the fuck are you going? Just more of like, we're off in a different state. And like, where the fuck are you going? She's like, trust me, I'll be right back. And I was like, all right, good. He comes back 5 minutes later with Sub. And I'm like, what? Okay. And she's like, he's going to dinner with us. And I was like, oh yeah. She's like, yeah, I went and stole him and told him he's not going to deal with all the pressure and all the bullshit tonight. And he's going to come to dinner with us. And so we went to dinner, and we brought a couple people with us, but, we got him away from the bullshit for a few hours, and I could see how much it helped. And then went and dropped him off at the hotel, and he calls me like an hour later. He's like, dude, can I come stay with you guys tonight? I was like, yeah, dude, no problem. I totally get it. So we sat in the hotel for like 5 hours that night, smoking herb, talking about life. And um, my wife is somebody that is a super duper mama bear, right? And most women don't realize how wired into them that is. It's why you see so many liberal women out there helping the wrong cause, is because they need to fulfill that mama bear mentality. And those people have need of something like that, right? Within the ranks, regardless if it's right or wrong, they find a home there because they need to fulfill that instinct. My wife is that super mama bear that just wants to take care of people and love on them. And so, like, all night she made sure Sub had all of his little things, and she's amazing like that. Like, when she has a perception about you and knows you, she's just going to make you abundantly aware without being annoying. No, not overboard, but we took care of Sub like, the way that he needed to be taken care of that night. And that was one of many examples of times that we had really memorable bonding moments, and then I left TGA because things were so chaotic, dude. Things were so chaotic between Jinx Proof and Jill and Sub and Dioxide and all the other people. And, Jinx Proof and I don't talk at all anymore. And we can get into why on another interview or whatever. But I will mention that he had a really bad seizure that led to a bunch more. And that seizure definitely affected his ability to process situations clearly. Let me just say it like that. So I ended up leaving TGA, and I used to be known as Mr. Spliff at TGA. Then one day I come to Instagram and I'm Mr. Spliff of Cannabis, and everybody's like, holy shit, what happened? And so I'm like, I'm leaving TGA, going to do my own thing. And Subcool posts on my post, I love you. We all want the very best for you. You're going to be a magnetic force in this industry type things. Very, very kind and loving, and sending me off in style in a way, right? And 6 months later, I see on Instagram that he's posting less than favorable things about me, which gutted me. It wasn't true. And he probably had people in his ear. And there was some other things said by some of the hang-arounds of Jinx Proof and other things that were like, they don't need to be said, but it was so unnecessary and like, again, not true. But and just for those that might be wondering, there were some of the guys that did not like me and my rise to fame that said things like I had raped my wife. And they were saying it on Instagram. And somebody that did not like me, that we had beef like dudes have beef, but this guy and I never got along, and he hit me up on Instagram. He's like, dude, I don't like you, but you need to know what these people are saying about you over here, because certain things are over the line. And I never made a big deal about it, but I was like, damn, dude, like they were, they had said that I had stolen, that I'd broken into dispensaries and I had stolen like 10 pounds, and that I'd done it to multiple dispensaries, and I was on the run. And just weird shit, dude. But when they said that stuff about my wife, I told her right away, and she was so offended. And so there was just things that like got really ugly for me, as far as like people that I worked really hard for, then turning around and needlessly, like, dude, I never raised any beef, dude. And so I had this like situation I was dealing with. And so in 2015, I went to the Emerald Cup. And I was working with Gage at the time, and I decided that I was going to go and confront Subcool. Because what was right, and I had been served a very dirty plate of fuck you for no reason. So I go over to the TGA booth, and Sub's not there. but all the boys that I know are there, the guys that I used to work with. A lot of these guys I introduced to Subcool. So they're like, dude, you got to get out of here. And I'm like, the fuck I do. And they're like, yeah, like Sub's not happy with you. I'm like, I'm not happy with Sub. How about that? And he's not showing up. And like, I'd been there like 20 minutes and I was like, fuck it, I'll come back in an hour. And I go to leave the little, like, there's like a cordoned off medical area where you can smoke. The rest of the thing is like, you can smoke, but this is the medical area. So I go to leave that to go back to the gauge booth. I take like 10 steps, dude, and bam, run right into Subcool face to face, like bump foreheads. And he looks at me like, oh, fuck. Like he gave me that look like, you're about to hit me, aren't you? Because he deserved it, dude. Like, we're good friends, and this dude been over there talking shit. And I was like, dude, fuck you. I didn't say any of that. We looked at each other, and he looked at me like, oh, fuck. And I immediately grabbed him by his shoulders and pulled him in and gave him like the most real bro hug ever. I'm a hugging dude. I want to be connected to you. I'm not afraid of my vulnerabilities. I put them into check and I know who the fuck I am. So I tell my friends that I love them and I hug them in a way that will probably make them uncomfortable the first time. I mean, I'm not trying to get friendly with you, but I want people to understand what my soul is trying to tell them. So I grab Sub and I hug him and he immediately starts hugging me back and he's like immediately in tears. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry. I know you got to be pissed at me for some of the things I said. And I pushed him back so he could see me, just like lightly. And I was like, dude, I know how many people you've got in your ear. I know what it's got to be like to be at your level. And just know that I don't care. I just wanted to come and tell you that we're good. Like, that's the whole reason I wanted to confront him and tell him, like, you've got a real friend in me. Fuck Woody. His arm's going to fall off. I'm real, and so you've got a friend in me, somebody that's not going to go away, that's not going to allow some little emotional situation that it's not going to be what breaks the fortress, right? And so from that moment forward, oh, and let me add to this. So we have our little moment. We walk to the booth. Like the whole PGA working staff is watching this whole situation go down. They're like, oh my God. So like Subcool and I walk back, like hand in hand, skipping together back to the booth, and immediately like somebody hands him the phone and he looks at me and he's like, oh, dude, you've got to go. And I was like, why? He's like, Jill just showed up. He's like, Jill does not like you. Which is crazy because I was super good to Jill all the time, like treated her like a sister, and genuinely just because I wanted her to feel loved. So Sub goes to meet Jill, and I'm like, well, I'll come back because they're going to be gone for a little bit, and I want to say hi to Jilly because regardless of what anybody else has said about me, I'm still me. So I come back to the booth and Geek Mike's like, Spliff, you gotta leave. And I'm like, dude, what? Is this a fucking theme today? So I'm like, what's going on? He's like, dude, Subcool just crashed Jill's car. And this is a car that they've built together, not like any kind of like crazy muscle car, but a car over 5 years that they put in, probably 15 grand into customizing because they made enough money and Jill wanted her car the way she wanted it. And, boys can definitely be focused, but when a female is set on something, getting in her way is like stepping in front of a Mack truck. It's bad. So her
How
car,
does the saying go? Hell has no fury like a woman's scorn.
yes,
I
dude.
think that,
And
yeah, yeah,
there's a subsection of that saying that relates to redheads.
yeah. That's funny.
I never would have guessed that I would have ended up with a redhead, and now I can't imagine myself with anything else. So not that I want any other, but um so Subcool crashes Jill's car in the parking lot and like fucks it up. So not only is there tension at the Emerald Cup, not only did I just come back and see Sub, but now he's coming back to the booth and Jill is fucking pissed. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm that dude that knows exactly what I've done and what I haven't done. And I know that there is certain times that are better than others, but I'm that fucking wrench in the cog. Okay, so I'm not going anywhere. I don't care if she's pissed because I've got something to say to her, and it's nothing more than, hey, don't forget I love you. So she comes back to the booth, and Sub sees me from like 100 feet and puts his head down, and I'm like, yeah, buddy, I'm here. So Jill walks past me, and she's like, you got a lot of fucking nerve being here. And I'm like, sweet, I'm going to let her take her anger out on me for a second. Because she has a right to be pissed. Her husband just crashed her car, getting to the Emerald Cup. They live locally, but, trying to get out of the
Still a
house. They
nightmare.
got to take care of the dogs. Yeah. So, like, she sees me and she's like, what the fuck? You got a lot of nerve being here. And I'm like, oh, yeah? That's how I reply. And she turns her head and looks back at me. And I'm like, I said, by the way you're looking at me, I feel like maybe some people have been in your ear saying nasty things that between us, or about us. And she's like, some of the things that you called me, Spliff, are so fucked up. And I said, were they this, this, and this? And she looked at me with absolute disgust. And I'm not going to repeat the names because it's not necessary. But she's like, yeah. And I was like, it's funny because those are the names that Jinx Proof uses for you. And I've never uttered one of those phrases in my life. And she's like looking at me kind of weird. I'm like, yeah, who do you think your real friends in Seattle are versus somebody that might be manipulating you? I said, when you go back and you look at our history, am I somebody that did things for you because I cared and I just wanted to be that dude? Or like, what does your heart tell you about me? And this is when she is pissed the fuck off about the car and everything else. And immediately the light clicks in her head and she's like, I always had a feeling that I was being fucked with. And I said, I'm never going to be that guy. I never want you to ever think this way about me again. And I came here and stood in the fire so I could prove to you that I have nothing to hide, that I'm not the guy that, whoever's been in our ears. And so from that day forward, we always had, Sub and Jill and I always had a really freeing relationship. It was very there was no weird strings attached. There was no weird we weren't working together anymore. We were just friends. And so and I'd been to their house. It was before that situation when Sub and Jill had their house in Santa Rosa. Jinx Proof and I went down, and the highlight of my career at that point was I went to Sub's garden, and he thought very highly of me as a gardener. And he's like, Jinx Proof was down in the kitchen, and Sub's like, hey, Spliff, let me take you to the flower room real quick. And so we go into the office, into the flower room, and we're looking at stuff, and he's like, so how do you think? You think I'm doing all right? And he's like genuinely asking me, am I a good enough gardener? I've been growing for like 3 or 4 years, and I grew absolute fucking fire. I knew what I was doing very early on. I sold a bunch of fire when I was younger, so I knew what the high water mark looked like and what it needed to be. But when he asked that, I was like, wow, that was like amazing. And so we continued to be friends, after the Emerald Cup situation, and like really, really close friends after that. Because again, fabric is only as strong. Well, you can only say that it's as strong as you've tested it, And so, we had decided to do some collabs for the Weed Nerds, and we had started to build the menu. I was doing the breeding, and about 3 months before we were about to start putting out like pamphlets and stuff, he passed away. And I was going to my garden the morning he passed away. And Kyle Cushman and I've been friends for a long time. We don't talk so much anymore. A difference of political and medical opinions, let's say. And sorry, I'm a guy that can just talk and talk and talk. So,
Dude, you're a great storyteller. No, and you got me.
cool.
You got me on the edge of my seat. No, please continue. I'm engaged. As soon as I got questions, I'm diving in. But dude, you're a great storyteller.
Okay, cool. So I'm heading to the garden one day, and like Kyle Cushman and I talked like, I don't know, like once a month at this time in my life. And generally at night though, right? We both would work during the day and do our things, then catch up before it was like, before or after dinner or something. And my phone rings as I'm getting in my car and it's Kyle. And I'm like, it's a little early for him to be calling me. Like, I don't know what it is I could do for his day at this early, but again, so I answer the phone and he's like, "Hey, Spliff, what's up?" And I'm like, "Not much, dude. Just heading to the garden." And he's like, can you sit down?" And I'm like, "Oh, is it like serious?" He's like, "Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you for a minute." And so I like sit down in my truck and he's like, "Sub passed away this morning at 5 a.m." And I can go back to that moment very easily in my head and feel the uh I'm trying to think of, I guess, sorrow, but it was like one of these things where I knew what he had been through. And anybody that knew the last 4 years of his life knew that he went through a lot, losing the home in California and then watching Jill do what Jill did and then to die in the RV. Tough way to go, dude, especially as a dude. Like, um, so back to the cosmic scheduling, like moon time for women is obviously a it can be looked at in a lot of ways, but because they have this compartmentalization, there's spiritual compartmentalization. Men have no clock, so we're a leaf in the wind, right? We're just floating through life, trying to make sure that we're spending the right amount of energy and the right shit. And but you have this kind of uh, being untethered also means that it's up to you, right, all the time, and that there isn't any kind of reminder. And so when you're this older dude and life just keeps getting harder and more brutal and then you pass that way, it's I remember watching the videos leading up to him passing, like, I still watched all his YouTube stuff and I talked to him like a week or two before he passed, and then we'd gotten busy. But watching him in the camper driving around, I knew what was coming. I knew he was going to move out into the sand, and you know, it's amazing what can happen when your heart is broken and lonely.
He
And
was a broken man, dude. But he had been through so much, and it's
yeah,
just like, not to mention his health, dude. His health was horrible to begin with, and losing your home, between him, the breakup between him and Jill, and it wasn't pretty. It's just like that's a lot, man. That's a lot, and
the
so
only thing that killed him was Jill. And I mean this in saying not like she could have been a lot better, but Subcool loved Jilly so deeply. Like, that's why I try and tell women, take it easy on us guys, because we're 5-year-olds we're in love with that little girl next door type thing, right? And the girl next door is misperceived. It's someone that we could find refuge in.
mhm.
And we're emotional and we're not as strong as you might think sometimes, and take it easy on us because we are doing the very best we can. We don't have any other mode of operation. Now there's shitty people all over the world, but Subcool was the little boy with the balloon in his hand and a flower for his girl. And he loved Jill so much, and the whole situation just being what it was completely fucking broke him.
Yeah,
So,
it was tough to see, dude. It was really, really tough to see, man. And in the stress, the the distress amongst the team too,
dude, it was
do you
always ugly, bro.
and
And
like, do you have like, I did you ever figure out that it was proof, Jinx proof, that said these things?
Oh, I mean,
You know.
we used to hang out together all the time. I've heard it first. Like,
Oh, okay. Why then?
so when
Why would it, in whose interest? Was it just to throw mud? Was it just to make him feel stronger, or like what was the point?
some people are bruised, so when I met this native dude, Andy, in Ukiah, he was the guy that raised Jinx Proof. And he said that he came from a very difficult home where he was cornered and kicked and abused. And um, that carried over into his later life. And honestly, there was a lot about Jinx Proof that I really appreciated and liked. And then there was parts of him that were just this nasty, hurt little boy. And the way he used to treat my wife was an example of that. He used to make fun of her and talk shit to her. And, I'd let some of it go because it was friendly banter between two friends. And then sometimes I'd have to step in as the boyfriend and a dude that's like, 6 foot 240 and quite the kung fu stylist. Like, bro, I'll fuck you up. Right? Like, I don't like to wear that hat very often, but I keep it in my pocket. So, there was just a lot of hate and resentment, and people that don't put forward the effort to be excellent at something in life end up looking at everybody else. And God, I'm probably talking to myself right now. Fuck. But anyway, I hate that, dude. I hate that shit. But anyway, son of a bitch. There's just a bunch of nasty, shitty people out there. And, people talk about rock and roll being sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Trust me, you don't want that life. I've been there. I've seen what people with big money and drugs are like, and they're all perverts. Every fucking last one of them, dude. I've been at the top of certain industries, and I've seen the things that are offered to you and the regular texture of these kind of people, and it's fucking filthy and disgusting, right? Especially when drugs and heavy sexual intention are mixed together, because then you have weird fucking relationships. And that's just, I'm not about that, dude. Like, I'll tell you, people that think that you can just play around like that and not be an emotional fucking wreck are completely wrong. And so I watched all these different things go down, and I watched all this pain and pressure at TGA. And what I learned from it is do right by your relationships, be honest, put the work in, and be happy with where you're at, because it's probably where God wants you. And TGA was crazy, dude. I watched all these people want shit from sub, want shit from sub, want shit from sub. And dude was under so much pressure. I can only imagine the amount of ulcers he had to have. Just stomach uncomfortable all the time, people, bills, managing the team wanting to come up and be put on, and
It's a lot, dude.
crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's insane, dude. And sad thing is, dude, the industry is still full of these snakes, these weasels, and
We call them ain't shit motherfuckers.
shit, motherfucker. Yeah, I know. I call them weasels. I got the
Yeah,
same
for
term.
sure.
Yeah.
For
No,
sure.
same thing. That's it, dude. They're
Spiritual
only here
fools.
and they're gone. They're here and they're gone. Yeah, it's unfortunate, dude. But you know what? I think through conversation and awareness, conversation's number one. I really believe that, because the only way we're going to know about these things is if we talk about them, man, and weed out the bad actors, expose them for really what they're doing and what they've done. Because if we don't, then
Right.
man, it's like they for some reason they'll dominate the industry while the good guys, the mom and the pops, struggle and suffer. And that's so unfortunate. So it's like, I'm not afraid to talk about these things and have these conversations, because I think it's very important. Because from what I watched from Subcool, man, this is a guy that was about it, man. He was about education, he was about awareness, he was about family, and it was definitely a good foundation for me to start off when I was starting to learn and get into content creating and weed as a whole. because man, he
Yep,
was doing it.
for
And
sure.
dude, he loved his music, dude. I just love how the music dominated the audio of his live streams too. And
Yeah.
dude, it was epic. And he was asked one time, can you are we gonna turn down the music a little bit? And he's like, no, yeah, Greg. I just fuck, dude. It's just a don't give a fuck attitude, but at the same time, it was a community, family first attitude, man. And I was about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
huge fan. Yeah, huge
Yeah.
fan, dude.
And with his videos, like especially the Daily Show and the Weed Nerd stuff that he was putting on YouTube, I mean, there was almost 400 episodes. And even with all the bullshit of life and COPD and marriage and failed friendships, good friendships, when he would put out a video, he was always smiling. He was always in a good mood, and there was nothing else like it. You were getting between 15 minutes and an hour of some jolly Subcool, you know? And it's funny, too. He called me one day, and he's like, do I hear myself in the background? I was like, oh, yeah, I'm watching The Last Weed Nerd. He's like, you watch those? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, why? He's like, you already know everything I'm talking about. I'm like, yeah, but it's like we're hanging out. I was like, I listen to you when I'm in the garden and smoking a joint. And like, I know your voice so well that it's like, I mean, and people that watch him know it really well. But, you know, he and I had spent so much time together that I was like, it's just like sometimes I want to hang out, but I don't want to bother you with a call. You know, and he's like, you mean you don't want to get stuck on the phone for 3 hours? I'm like, call it what you will, but like the videos are my chance to like hang out with you. And sometimes I even talk to you, you know, even though you can't hear me. And he's like, that's just plain weird, but I appreciate it. So, you know, his videos were really special, and there was nothing else like it where, you know, there was guys like Remo and maybe some other small groups, but at the time too, at home video production was nothing. I mean, dude, just stupid things like CapCut. I've only used it a few times, but the amount of stuff you can do with something like that to add production value of any kind is fucking insane. And now you've got AI, and I can say I would like to see a video where my name, Mr. Spliff, starts out as smoke and then turns into the American flag and then turns into a bomb that blows up and says "fuck you," and it will do it.
It will. Yes,
You
it
know,
will.
like I'll have to show you some of the stupid videos that I've made because I've got this series of Grok AI videos of
Yeah.
used car salesmen pushing my seed stock, and they're all in like old shitty car salesman suits, and they're like, buy these seeds now, you know. And like, so it's different from what we can do today and what those guys were doing then. And it would have probably taken them 3 or 4 hours to record, cut, edit the video, then wait for it to upload. And people are like, why don't you do more videos? He's like, dude, that last one took me 8 hours. So it was a unique time. Cannabis was blowing up. High Times is going across the country throwing events, and like it was this whole vibe, you know. And it's still there, but so much of it's inauthentic these days. And there's a bunch of dudes with you know, podcasts and stuff, but there's a lot of tourists and people that don't just genuinely appreciate cannabis, and we're of a very unique generation to get to see it unfold like this.
Yeah, dude, I believe it's still in its infancy, brother. It's like
Oh,
the
100%.
I got in
100%.
I got into the online game in 2014, and the amount of advancement I've seen in the last 11 what are we now, 12 years has been
Yep.
incredible. Has been
Oh, dude,
incredible,
huge.
dude. And you, like you just said it, the fact that we have apps that create the videos for us, dude. And back, the most advanced technique I had was using iMovie on my iPhone,
Yeah,
and it
100%, dude.
worked
Awesome.
great, dude. Yeah, it worked
Yep.
great. And there was zero production in 2014 either, dude. And it was like,
Oh,
but
dude.
you had people hustling, and I mean hustling in regards to
Yeah.
trying to spread awareness, man, trying to put out as much information as they could for free. Right, when it was like when
Yeah,
the
really.
information was like almost forbidden at this point. You had to know a guy who knew a guy to get any kind of real
Dude.
information.
Without a doubt. That's why my channel succeeded early on. And we weren't really about education. We were more like, fuck you, look what I'm doing, bitch. Like this whole, and it wasn't a matter of like, I hated the concept of fuck yo bag or you ain't smoking what I'm smoking because I wanted everybody to have fire, but it was a combination of flexing and teaching, and I think people like that vibe because they're like, damn, I want a garden like that. And then here comes like 2015, 2016, 2017 when rec starts getting big and guys that were flexing with 10 lights and taking home all the chips all of a sudden partner with someone. They're like, bitch, I got 200 lights now. And I'm like, oh man, I feel sorry for you, because I got 99 problems but a commercial facility ain't one.
Right, right. Oh God, I
So
couldn't imagine.
and so it's changed a lot. All these people that were like, bro, I got this garden. I'm like, you don't own any of it. Like, sure, they might have given you some equity in the company and you get a paycheck, but you're the bitch now. And it sucks to see that because you're the guy with all the talent. But same story over and over again. Venture capitalists or guys with money are like, oh, I'm going to find somebody to exploit and then sell it or do whatever I want. And they
That's
have
why
no
I mean,
control.
like it's in its infancy because we're just being at this
Yep.
moment, like for at least Canada, like we legalized in 2018 and we're
Mm-hmm.
immediately dominated by the heavy actors, the big investors, the people that thought they could grow weed in 30 days and then have it pushed out
Right.
on right, and then all of a sudden they realized, oh shit, this can grow. This take 5 months. Like you're kidding me.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
that weeded out a lot of people. A lot of big actors lost a lot of money. And as we started to push through it, now you're weeding through the big, and now you're starting to see the smaller people, the ones that were resilient and had to push through all the barriers at the beginning that got through. And I want to call them the craft, but they're not all craft. They're a little bit bigger than that now. So, but it's like we're gonna get to a point where I believe the community and the culture does dominate because we sit in such a unique position in regards to we've already had this isn't a new industry, but this isn't a new culture. This isn't a new community. This is a strong sleeping giant of a community that does
Yep.
exist. And I think that will dominate in the end. And I know I'm on glass half full when I think about that, but that's not to say we're not going
I
to have
think you're right on.
hurdles and, and,
I
and
mean,
push through. Go ahead, please.
well, you look at like, say, an industry like beer, right? And most people are happy to consume their Bud Lights or some ice beer, or like back in the day, we'd drink Molson Ice. Got shitty on a bunch of cans Molson. Oh my
Yeah,
god! But
lucky
my point
you.
is,
Yeah, I get it. I was drinking kokanee, dude.
we drank Kokanee and we drank Labatt's and we drank some of the stuff we didn't want to. We drank a lot of Rolling Rock and
Yeah, yeah.
but my point is because the unaware public that is part of this mass machine of pharmaceutical and advertisement fucking barrage, right? There's people that are so busy, they don't have time to think for themselves. There's a medical industry that says just take a pill. So it's just about consumption at the end of the day. And I think it's coming. It's going to be stripped away. People are going to become aware of all these companies and all this health industry shit that's been trying to kill them for years. Right. So with that and cannabis emerging, a lot of these big money guys that are like, well, how many grams per square foot can I get? Rather than the real process of being like, well, how good a weed can I grow? Because we've met with a bunch of people that are like, we want to be first to market. We want to be first to market. Well, great. You're first to market, but your wheel is square. Nobody's going to be able to drive on that. So, like, if you're not marketing a beautiful round wheel, why the fuck does it matter if you're first to market? You're just a trash bag trying to take up the sales of people that are uneducated, and that's not going to last. Because even dumb people know that sitting on nails doesn't feel good, so they're not going to do it again. And so with the cannabis industry, I think that as a real, true health revolution comes about and people start to see this quality in cannabis, and it's not about taking, smoking an ounce a day. It's about every toke you take actually meaning something. What a good time for revealing the truth, because, with with large companies still controlling all the airwaves, it's tough for certain information to get out there. But I think that in a time where people are becoming aware that there's better things for you out there, that good cannabis is going to be everything. And, what we've been told to buy local and fresh our whole lives. So if it ends up being one of those things where laws are adjusted and we can share cannabis like we share tomatoes, like if the financial side of the industry was to be completely gutted to where it was one of those things that we just grew for ourselves, and sure, there'd still be big business because not everybody can grow their own weed, but like I would love to see the industry take the change to where it was just about communal care, like taking care of each other through cannabis and things like that. And it does provide the means to make, some financial gains. But as we're in the infancy, I think that we're in a really good spot moving forward. And there's going to be law changes, and we've had to adapt our whole lives. But I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So, rescheduling will allow new research here in America, which will obviously affect the rest of the world. And
So you're in favor? That was going to be my next question. You're in favor of the rescheduling movement as a
oh
whole?
yeah, 100%, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, the only people that stand in the way of things outside of, like, if they were trying to take it away from us, obviously, we need to remind these motherfuckers why they're in the position they are, because our Constitution down here says we the people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposedly putting people in place because we don't have the time to go and sit and argue about little fucking details. But the people would like to be able to live their lives and have true freedom. And liberty is granted by man, freedom is given by God. And I think that there is a big difference in how we should see ourselves. So going forward, I think that, and mind you, think of in your country, in my country, in the country to the south of us, how many bad organizations utilize cannabis grows to fund their more nefarious bullshit. So as we change the laws that weed out a lot of that ultra criminal part of our industry, and it's given back to us, and I shouldn't say given back, but once that threat is gone, I think that it's going to be easier for us, the people, just to do what we want to do, because I think there's a lot of scary things that are placed as bruises on our industry because there's some of these huge cartels or whatever else, using bad newts or spraying bad shit, or they get caught doing some other shit, and that weed came, or that money came from weed, and so it makes us look bad. And I just want people to be able to smoke good, clean cannabis and to not have too much regulation.
Are you at all okay, I can appreciate that last statement. Are you at all concerned about the fact that it like moves it to medical, like, and the pharmaceutical industry dominating because like they're the professionals of the medical, or sorry, of like modern medicine?
Big industry, pharmaceutical, right? Again, pharmakia comes from, I won't get into the book. That's another conversation. But pharmakia is an old word that means spirit and body control, right? Mm-hmm. Through elixirs and tonics and things that we weren't crafting ourselves. But then you get into the pharmaceutical industry, and how is it that every single pharmaceutical product doesn't at least state, make sure you're taking your multivitamins?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not based in health. It's obviously the sick stay clients forever. So I think a lot of that is going to be coming into open view for people, and they're going to realize how it's not about corruption. It is about people that literally want us dead. They are evil. And I don't mean that in just a cartoon. Oh, no, these people are dark. The pharmaceutical industry is not people that want to make your life better. They are people that have been plotting to undermine your physical biome as long as we've been alive. There's very few medical interventions outside of going for a walk and touching grass, as we said the other day, or taking your vitamins or getting your nutrition through food. You know, the Wi-Fi and all the other bullshit. There's all this stuff that's put against us. So these giant companies that think that they're going to come out and Marlboro or Camel cigarettes the industry, I don't think. And again, cannabis does not have a super big shelf life, right? 6 months to a year before it starts to like wane really badly. So if they're going to get into this huge production, they better be able to keep clientele. And so I see the people at the precipice of that point where they are going to take matters back into their own hands. And when the streets are full of people, there's nothing they can do, and they're on the run as it is already, right? Cannabis is one of those things that I truly believe is one of the only pieces of produce on our earth that reconfigures your DNA back to its original code. And our DNA is manipulated all the time. So, cannabis is coming whether they like it or not, and they won't be able to stand in its way, and they sure as fuck won't have the biggest seat at the table. It might look that way, but I have a feeling, and it seems like it's happening, that these real big shot money mouth people are about to fucking get served, you know? And I know a lot of guys that, because of my position as Mr. Spliff, you know, and working with Sub and Gage and having all these friendships that I did, people talk to me about their business plans and what they're going to do. And very rarely am I like, oh, that's honorable, you know? And so I think, like, I don't know another industry you could compare it to, but I think if your heart is not in the right place, that it is painfully obvious to those viewing it from the consumership side of the table. So while there might be some weeding through shitheads and this and that, I think the opportunity for the little man to create space within a more recognized legal market, be it talking about plants, talking about ways of consumption, or, you know, even as somebody as a non-gardener, just being excited about the innovations of plant food, right? And ways of either growing specific crop or, you know, particular fermentation. I mean, whatever it is, there's going to be all these new avenues. And when we were kids, dude, the head shops, if you were going to go buy a bong, you couldn't say bong. You had to be careful, right? And there was all these people trying to get the shops closed down. And it was like, same thing with grow shops. Weed's illegal, but there sure is like 50 stores in Seattle, and they all got like 5-gallon jugs of this stuff. So what the fuck's going on for real, right? You know, and now we're getting to the point where the lines are fading and it's becoming more relaxed, and real research will be able to be done. And sure, there'll be shitheads researching and good people researching, but I'm very excited to see new categories of safe space, if you will. I hate that phrase, but for people to pursue the things that excite them about cannabis and make it, you know, like things that like we're doing right now. So many new subjects. And so I'm excited by it because I've been a part of this drug war for a long time. And, you know, the drug war is such a fucking bullshit phrase anyway, but like, and the idea that I was dumb enough to get caught up in substances that are not good for me. Cannabis is not one of those, right? So it's like, because I've seen all the bullshit and I see this beautiful little lady, just little cannabis, just standing in the field. It's like playing marbles and, you know, sharing its sandwich with its friend, being hella nice. You know, they might go and walk an old lady across the street later. It's not like all the other bullshit in our life. So I'm always excited to see what will come of oh, what the fuck? I was telling wifey I hit some button. I was like trying to do something
Yeah,
on the
I can
screen,
hear
and it was
everything.
like,
Yeah, I heard you saying that. Yeah, yeah. Discord, Discord is the worst because it's like, but it's the
dude,
best at the same time because it's free, it's high quality, and I was you and I were talking earlier about the um using like StreamYard and Restream and stuff like that. I
Yep.
refuse to use those, and not because they cost money, but that's a huge part of it. But because I wanted my show, my stream to look different, dude.
Right.
And
For sure, dude. I mean,
that's the
that's
biggest. I've been
marketable.
in this long enough, dude, and I think you and I can relate to it. It's just like I'm not trying to look like everybody else. I'm trying to step
Oh,
that
God.
bar up every single time because these new cats, dude, they come around and dude, they come in hot, and it's just like we gotta be on top of our game, dude, or we're gonna get swallowed up, brother.
Well, the education is coming, and I will say that there are so many fake ass ain't shit motherfuckers out there. And I mean, with the capability of like, if you put some money into a situation, you can come across in the way that you think you look official. But a lot of these guys out there, they're tourists, and it's obvious. And then people will come to my show and they're like, "Whoa, you're like way different." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't give."
I
And
don't
it's
get.
not about lazy, but more of I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not.
That's it right there, dude. That's it right there,
So
dude. Like I've noticed it with yourself. I gotta be honest. I didn't know a whole lot going into before we had our very first conversation. Of course, I try
which
to
is
do some
awesome.
whole. Yeah, exactly. Me. That's exactly what I'm in this for. And I try to do a little homework on all my guests, so I'm not coming in naked when it comes to the conversation.
You
But
think the wife you'd care for that?
yeah, right. Well, anyways, the reality is that when I checked in on you, you are very open. You're live all the time. You're discussing anything and everything. You're an open book, and that's where I knew. First of all, you and I were going to get off great because I feel like being
Yeah,
an open
for
book,
sure.
I got nothing to hide. I just want to have a conversation,
Yep.
and it's like people can kind of just see right into what it is that I feel and I believe, and I'm open to conversation.
It's
That's the
important,
biggest
dude.
thing, dude. I knew we
Yeah.
would. I
There's
I knew we would agree on a lot of things, but I also knew that we would probably disagree on a few things as well. And that's the greatest part of conversation, and that's what keeps the conversation going, in my opinion. If it was just
yep.
yep, me too, me too, me too.
Well, and to have a thought about the way you feel too, like it's easy to just like agree on stuff, but to be able to find the root of the feeling is where you see the commonalities, right? Like regardless of what tyrant we live under or what bullshit we deal with, we're still dads, we're still husbands, we're still friends, we're still smokers, we're guys that have to get up and work. And so the realities that become our daily experience give us that commonality. And um
It's just
there's
unfortunate.
people.
Sorry, I
Go
didn't
ahead.
mean to cut you off.
You're fine.
I was just thinking it's just so unfortunate. Like I know you and I had a conversation earlier this week before we sat down, just to get a feel for each other, which was great, and I really appreciated that. The pro and we discussed these things. That was the point of me saying that. Was
Mhm.
that it's by design, dude. It's by design. The powers that be much rather have you and I distracted, not
Oh
asking
yeah.
questions, overworked, highly stressed, unhealthy, and because then we're not questioning those powers that be, that we're not questioning the system in which we've been stuck into, and we just
Mhm.
continue being a cog in the wheel, right? And so I don't
That's
I
yep.
don't blame the average person for the way they think, or the fact that when I hear them have a conversation about something, I can just hear the news points coming at me, the CNNs, the Fox, the MSNBC. I can just hear
Yeah.
it. I can just hear it coming right out of them verbatim. And it's like I don't
The
blame them.
system.
I don't blame them. It's
Yeah, the
just
system's well
I want to
designed,
talk
isn't
to
it?
them. It is very well designed. It's very well designed
So
because it's so easy to be distracted, dude. Like as someone who suffers from, behavioral and attention issues, it's like I am very distracted. And you just even think about it when you're driving. You're driving down the street. You're supposed to pay attention to all the road signs, the street lights, but yet you're inundated with advertisements, displays, neons, flashing lights, and yet you've got to try to pay attention to the law, right? But it's just like that's every day. We're so distracted, and it's just like we're just trying to go down the road, dude.
That's why you got to love the movie They Live with Rowdy Roddy Piper. Have you seen it?
Nope. I don't know who Rowdy
You've
Rowdy.
got homework.
I do.
You've got homework to do.
I'm. Is it a late '80s or '90s movie?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sweet. It'll definitely make its way higher up on my list.
That's the only kind of movies I watch. If it's past
Same here.
2005, I won't watch it.
That's how I am with
But
music.
this movie, it's not your typical movie. It's like good for conspiracy guys.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
It's very basic, but They Live is basic. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it just shows how marketed to we are. And I think that when you look at the food system, you look at the air quality, you look at the water system, you look at the microplastics, you look at the pharmaceutical, you look at the media inundation and the hyperstimulation, no wonder people are so fucked up.
Uh-huh.
I'm fucked up. We're all fucked
me
up.
too. We all are.
We live in an environment where there is a dark energy that wants us to hate our lives because that's their purpose. And so with all that going on, we get caught up in all this nonsense. And I go back and forth between I hate people and I love people. I genuinely love people and want to nurture and take care of them and help them find their way to this awesome water that I'm drinking. I'm like, oh, it's so nice and clean. Come over here. I'll show it to you, and some of my I'm a conservative dude, and some of my very best friends are staunch liberals, dude. And some of them are like completely non-spiritual people. And we just know that we can talk about that stuff if we want to. We're just going to get in an argument. And there's things that we can discuss all the time that bring us great joy and commonalities. And so, and I don't think people are really that different. I think we all want a comfy bed to sleep on, clean water, family and food, and that's clean and healthy, and just to live our lives. Outside of that, there's all these little distractions. And like I mentioned in our last conversation, the star belly skinks and the non-star belly skinks, and we're all fighting over who's got a star on their tummy rather than looking at the dude with the machine and kicking his ass. So it's a wild world to be caught up in all the hyper life that we live in these days. Technocracy is a devil, and the simple things like cannabis and coffee and getting to hug your wifey, they're the things that like reset your brain. And it's so funny too. Like, sometimes I'll come up and hug my wife and she's like, okay, like I'm a long hugger. And she's like, why? And I'm like, my system needed a reset and you're my reset button. So like, shut up and be cute and let me hug you, And so that's why I've always had like a special place in my heart for cannabis, because amidst all the bullshit, it's a 15-minute vacation. That initial confusion, you could be thinking about like, bro, I'm going to put chocolate chips on a peanut butter sandwich with pickles, banana, and tomato. Like the most obscure thought ever. But while you're thinking about the most disgusting sandwich in the world, which I've never thought about that one, but you're not thinking about work or having to pick the kids up or all the bullshit. And then when you snap back to it, you're like, oh my God, my brain's been over here like fucking doing whatever it's doing, and now I can readdress my life, because for 15 minutes I wasn't thinking about the fact that I suck and I need to do so much more. So cannabis is awesome, especially when it's clean and grown in a way of intent, and you can consume it without it like physically destroying you or giving you a headache or making you tired, or taking 3 grams of dabs every day, which is destructive as hell,
dude. Yeah,
so there's
3 grams of it certainly could be. I don't know where you'd find the time to do that. I don't know what you're doing if that's what you're doing.
Some people, dude, are dabaholics, man, and I see it in them, and it sucks because I can see their soul being sucked from them. And
dude, there's people that overuse is certainly it's something that isn't talked about enough. I'm surrounded by people that also overconsume, or not. I shouldn't say surrounded by, but I've been surrounded by, and you see where that's like, dude, you would just be so much more vibrant and so much more successful if you took that energy and focused it on something else, dude. That man. Mr. Spliff,
they're working through shit most of the time, right? I mean, there's some pain.
There's hope. Yeah, there is. You're right.
It's tough. So it's like and often, and that's again where darkness comes in. We find a certain kind of therapy, and then we abuse the therapy, and it becomes something that is a bag of rocks that you're carrying rather than it benefiting you. And everything's like that in life. You got to have your little friend. You got to have your little friend with you. I can't do this without my little friend. So be it whatever, and life is about management and consistency and the big evil D, discipline. So,
Yeah, it's a tough one, dude. But that's the power of being a strong, confident man with a strong foundation and purpose, dude, and to live to that purpose and be the fullest and be the best that you can as an individual. And that there keeps you out of the darkness, man, and into the light. Brother, I really appreciate your mission, man, and I really appreciate the shit that you stand for. And I want to mark this down as the first of many conversations to come between you and I, bro, because 2 hours in and I still feel like we just scratched the surface, dude. We didn't even,
we could go forever.
You're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong. If
if
anybody
we'll have to break it up.
If anybody wanted to get a hold of you or tune into your lives, where would they do that?
So you can always find me on YouTube under Mr. Spliff of Cannabis. I'm on Rumble. I was on Instagram for years, for 14 years. Huge accounts. I'm not allowed on there anymore. But you can email me at thenorthwestpreservation@gmail.com. You can also get a hold of me at mrspliffofcannabis@gmail.com, but I use the Northwest Preservation, and it is the Northwest Preservation at Gmail. We do lives a lot. Our lives can be very educational. We sometimes are discussing whether or not we like hush puppies or hash browns better. So it's one of those things that's just open. If you're new to my lives, don't be afraid to ask questions or be vocal in the chat. We're normal people, and I try to be a guy that helps people find their own strength, because there are a lot of strong men and a lot of people with good foundations, but then there's those in that position that are questioning and seem that they feel forgotten. And we like to be a voice for the forgotten and for the little man. And the thing that I would love to end with is I was given a very unique position by God in this industry. I blew up overnight. Because of Subcool, I became a household name. I mean, before Instagram was huge, I had one of the biggest accounts. I had 30,000 on YouTube. I had 70,000 on Instagram. At one point, we were like really big. And so because of that, I had a lot of public interaction, and I was able to bless people and take care of people. And I took that very seriously. And there's this show, The Office. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so Steve Carell, Michael Scott, plays this odd character that is very lonely, and all he wants in life is friends and family, wants to be recognized as somebody that's living and breathing. And it's funny how that didn't hit as something I had experienced, but it made me more aware of there's a million people that you're going to pass in life that if you just looked at them and smiled and said hello, that it could have been of great impact. So we really, and when I say we, I just speak for the business that my wife and I've been a part of forever, but the goal has been to, if you're a big baller, big player, big influence in the industry, or if you're somebody that's new, you hold the same value. And we try to encourage people to grab that little light that's still flickering inside, because if that light's flickering, there's a reason for it. So we want to, and mind you, I'm somebody that's gone through being financially fit and big name, and gone through the opposite of it, of being crushed and canceled and left in a position where I had to rebuild over and fucking over again, dude. It's been a major struggle to get my viewership and stuff back. But I want to encourage men that don't see a bright light shining to recognize that the flame has not gone out, and there's time. You're never too late. You never know what experiences you've been given to not only help others, but be a part of your accreditation. Wear your stripes with pride. It's a tough fucking world out there. And just because you think you see somebody else doing better than you, that's darkness in your head telling you that either you're not enough or that you're on the wrong path or whatever else. Get up and be fearless and really go through the steps that it takes to get to where you want to be. You know what they are. I know what I hate. I hate giving advice like this because God's just laughing at me in the mirror. He's like, "What did you just say?" So
Because he
lead
knew.
up with intention. Drink water. Tell the people that you love them. Life is short, and it is the testing ground. So be honorable, be fair, and treat people the way you want to be treated. Fuck that. Treat them better than you ever expect to be treated, and see what happens.
Wise words,
It
brother.
it's a tough life. I moved a lot as a kid. I knew what friendship meant. I didn't have it a lot when I was young, and so come to my lives and hang out and chat with us, and we're gonna do some awesome videos together, dude. We're gonna do some really cool stuff together.
Hell yeah, brother, and I'm excited for it, dude. Wise words, and you're full of them, dude. And I encourage people to check you out and dive into you and your conversations, man, because this has been a great one, dude, and I really appreciate it. Stick around right after this, dude. We'll touch in, but for everyone else, I want to thank you for tuning in. We'll catch up with you next week. On behalf of myself,
That's
Mr.
right.
Spliff, Mrs. P, thank you very much.
Adios.